So good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on diversity and inclusion. As many of you know, we are the European Capital of Democracy non-profit organisation, which was founded by the Innovation in Politics Institute, and we're based here in Vienna. Well, I'm based in Wales currently, but the team is mainly based in Vienna. And we have a network of partners in 20 European countries and beyond. This series of webinars is brought to you by the European City Network. We have 24 different cities across 15 European countries. Vienna is the current European Capital of Democracy, and we've recently announced that Cascais has been selected by our citizens jury as the next European Capital of Democracy in 2026. This is part of the Network of Towns project, which is co-funded by the European Union. Antwerp, Barcelona, Bologna, Braga, Brussels, and Cascais have joined forces to create this series of webinars where cities both teach and learn together with citizens from all across Europe. And we also meet up as a network for in-person meetings. Topic today is diversity and inclusion, which was selected as the specialist subject of the City of Bologna, and Antwerp and Rotterdam will also be speaking with their contributions on the subject today. So after this brief introduction, I will hand over to Bologna for the first best practice presentation, followed by Antwerp and then Rotterdam. Then we have a Q&A session. In the Q&A session, you will be allocated into a breakout room. You can swap rooms as you like thereafter, and you can have a little bit more of an in-depth discussion on each of the best practice presentations before a brief summary and outlook at the end. So who's speaking with us today? We have Beatrice Collina from the Municipality of Bologna, Karen Millens from the City of Antwerp, and Shantie Singh from the City of Rotterdam. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to Beatrice, please, for the presentation. And I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Good morning, everybody. It is a pleasure to be with you today and have the opportunity to share experiences and best practices with other cities. Before starting, I will briefly introduce myself. I'm Beatrice Collina, and I work for the Rights, Cooperation New Citizenship Unit at the University at the Municipality of Bologna. In the last year, the unit was in charge of developing a pilot in the framework of the European project Unites. As a representative of the municipality, today I will show to you the steps and results of the participatory process model we have worked on. The title of my presentation, as you can see, is the core review of the educational services in the City of Bologna, a pilot action. As you may know, Bologna has a long tradition in participatory processes. However, it still is a challenge for us to reach the target of the so-called new citizens, in particular migrants and people with migrant background. For this reason, with the support of the Unites project consultants, we try to develop a model of participatory process, in particular, a core review of existing municipal services. We had three main goals. First of all, to reach migrants and people with migrant background, involving them directly within a municipal processes. We wanted to hear their voices. Secondly, to improve the services of the municipality, making them more accessible and inclusive. Last but not least, to build a model which we hope to employ and replicate in different contexts. To summarize the different actions of the pilot here in Bologna, I will focus on the following 5 points. The definition of the exact field of intervention, the work of composition of the audit panel working group, the elaboration and dissemination of a tool for needs analysis, in our case, a questionnaire, the data analysis and the work on a list of recommendations, and finally, some considerations about lessons learned and success factors of our action. The first concrete phase of the pilot consisted in defining the services to be reviewed. As unit in charge of the coordination of the intersectional working group of the municipality, after a number of internal meetings with directors and representatives of other departments and offices, we finally opted to involve in the experimental process the educational area. The reasons were mainly in the following. First of all, the educational services are crucial for all the families, not only for the migrant and people with migrant background families. Given their daily work with parents, teachers, and students, colleagues from the educational departments are more familiar than others with experimental approaches and are more open to discuss with different actors. Finally, it was honestly easier to identify and define programs and procedures to be reviewed. Once taken this decision, we were ready to establish the audit panel, which concretely worked on the participatory co-review of the educational services. More in detail, we decided to build a working group of between 12 and 15 participants, keeping a certain balance between people from the civil society and internal technical staff. Thus, we proceeded by launching a public call to select 6 people with migrant backgrounds. No specific competencies were required, but a personal interest on the topic and a direct knowledge of the educational services, as parent, for instance. 10 candidates responded to the call. Through individual interviews aimed at understanding the real motivations, we finally chose the 6 participants for the audit panel. In parallel, we identified 6 colleagues, 1 for each district of the municipality, having specific competencies on the different educational services provided by the administration. We also involved 3 diversity managers, which are figures supporting the municipality on inclusiveness and accessibility of the services. A colleague from the educational department and I coordinated the activities of the audit panel. From the very beginning, we established the number of the meetings, 5 or 6, from February to June 2024, sharing with the participants the calendar of the expected steps. As anticipated, the first action of the audit panel was to construct a device, in our specific case, a questionnaire, in order to map the needs of parents and families with migrant backgrounds who use the educational services of the municipality. I have to say that it was a very challenging exercise, which took a certain time and energy. On the one hand, the colleagues stressed the importance of formulating exact and precise questions in the survey. But on the other, as the representative of the civil society emphasized the necessity to have easy questions, simply written, with the possibility to use Google Forms for immediate translations in other languages, even if not perfect. The challenge was to guarantee a correct meaning of the questions, but at the same time, their accessibility to the target. In the following phase, the questionnaire was spread among parents and families through several channels in order to reach as many people as possible. Online, through WhatsApp and emails, you can see in the slide the QR codes, in presence on the occasion of events, communities, festivals. Some of the participants of the audit panel also organized focus groups to support parents in filling in the survey. After a period of 2 months, more or less, 10 people responding to the survey, 100 people, responding to the survey. All the results were analyzed by an expert and discussed together in June during the last 2 meetings of the audit panel. The aim was to identify the strong points of our services and the weak aspects to be improved. Considerations, suggestions, and practical inputs were collected, and a list of recommendations was elaborated and finally shared with the educational department. Some examples of the recommendation suggestions emerged. First of all, the importance of the translation, at least of the main sections of the forms and document, into a second language. Secondly, the rationalization of the deadlines for different types of applications. For instance, some parents stress the fact that they have different applications for different educational services provided by the administration, but for the same child. The importance to facilitate applications for parents who have more than one child using municipal services. Of course, the importance of the introduction of an intercultural perspective through a number of different activities, for instance, readings of different traditions for the children, lullabies from other countries, festive moments. Of course, the importance of the training for the staff of the municipal services. It was also important to keep informed the families, also through informal channels, for instance, WhatsApp, about any experimental projects and actions, and give constantly feedback to families on the outcomes of these projects. From the discussion, it emerged that some projects were active in some schools, but possible families interested were not aware of that, and interested families didn't know anything about the results of these projects. Finally, also the importance to promote activities among parents and families in schools to overcome mutual prejudice. It emerged, for instance, in the discussion of the audit panel that some racist behaviors are often present in the chat of parents, for instance. What have we finally learned from this experimental project? First of all, the importance of being the coordinator as unit of the intersectional working group, because it is a strategic factor in identifying the area which to share the experimental action with. Secondly, the importance of creating a mixed working group, putting together technical staff with specific competencies and representative of the target we wanted to involve. Thirdly, the importance of sharing from the very beginning the timing and goals of the process, in order to avoid that people involved in the audit panel consider it a sort of waste of time. Moreover, we had a limited number of meetings, and it was important to share from the very beginning a concrete device with the working group. In our case, it was a questionnaire, but of course, we could do also a different choice. Then it is central to have a clear overview of initiatives and events that may involve the target of the co-review. In this, for instance, we started a bit late because we decided to map the initiatives also in a second moment as a strategy to reach more people. Last but not least, it is very important to continue to provide updates and feedback to all the participants in the audit panel, even after the process, to show that the work done is seriously taken into consideration by the administration. I think, in fact, that an effective participatory process can take place only into a broader and consolidated set of actions. Of course, we have also understood which aspects could have been done differently and better. For instance, it would be ideal to have more time than we had in the pilot in order to collect more significant information and details from the survey. In addition, for the future, it could be a good idea to work to build trust among the participants. I repeat every time that in the experimental project, we were particularly lucky because both colleagues and people from civil society worked very well together from the very beginning. In conclusion, I can affirm that we were able to develop a concrete model, flexible and replicable, to be employed for co-reviewing municipal procedures and services. In this regard, for instance, the Demographic Services Office at the Municipality of Bologna is already open to build together with us a participatory process with the aim of making some of their administrative procedures and documents easier for migrant people and the people with migrant background. At the end of this experience, we look forward to seeing this model further developed and employed, not only in our administration, but maybe also in a different way, in a similar way in other cities. In the last slide, but it is okay. I inserted the link to the video of the project where you can find the contributions by the participant of the audit panel and the contribution about their work in this working group and this process. Thank you very much for your attention, and of course all questions and feedback will be welcome in the following stage. Thanks.
Many thanks for that fascinating presentation there. Yes, please do keep a hold of your questions for the breakout rooms. We'll just move straight on to Antwerp now with Karen. And I wanted to remind you all that you will get the presentations in the follow-up mail following this webinar. So Karen, over to you. We can see your screen now.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Welcome from me as well. My name is Karen and I do work for the Municipality of Antwerp for the Youth Department as a policy officer in the team of leisure time participation for mainly youngsters. And I would like to tell you about how we aim to provide quality leisure time activities for children and young people. I made a brief agenda of what I wanted to tell you. So first, I would like to tell you how we work as a youth department.
Sorry, Karen, just to interrupt, maybe you want to make it into full screen?
Big?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah,
yes.
Now you're on the
phone.
All
right, great. I did not sleep very well tonight, so my brain is a bit foggy. It's due to a sick child, so my apologies for that. So the agenda, well, I already told you I wanted to tell you something about how we work as a youth department, and then I would like to dive deeper into the theme of inclusion and especially the inclusion of children and young people with special care needs. I initially wanted to present you 2 projects, but I'm afraid I won't have enough time, so I might skip the second one. We can always discuss it in the breakout room, I guess, and I will share what I prepared for it in the presentation. And at least, last but not least, I formulate some conclusions. So, first of all, we are the youth department, so we work for young people aged 22.5 till 25. And we are mostly a coordinating department, so it means we don't organize any activities ourselves, but we finance organizations to do so, and we collaborate with other city departments on a wide range of topics to make sure that the voices of young people and the interests of young people are heard in all aspects of their lives. We formulated a mission statement, which you can read here. I won't discuss it in detail. I just would like to highlight 2 different aspects. One is the for, by, and with children. It means that in everything we do, the interests of children are our guides. So participation is really a core of how we want to work. The second one is the all children and young people. It refers to how we want to work inclusively for all children as formulated here. So there are 3 branches, 3 pillars of our organization that work together in the project I will present you later. The first one is the support for professional youth work organizations. There is a wide range, a wide variety of those professional organizations that we fund to do certain activities. There are cultural organizations, there are holiday organizations. It's a very diverse group of professional organizations. The second one is everything we coordinate about after-school childcare. It is only recently that this subject came to the municipality, because before it was all coordinated by the regional government, but it got decentralized. So everything that has to do with childcare right before and after school days and also during holidays is now coordinated by our department. And the third branch is our what we call a broad youth policies. So we focus on 6 priority themes that are listed here: leisure time, participation, public space, safety, future, and of course also inclusion. And it's based on these themes that we do work together with other departments and with other organizations in the field to prioritize actions. So very briefly on inclusion, it is a very broad concept. We narrowed it down to like 4 main focus target groups and subjects. The first is poverty and homelessness among youngsters. The second one, young newcomers. And the third one, mental well-being. And then we are jumping to children and youngsters with special care needs, which is like the 4th specific target group. I first wanted to give you some numbers, but one of the main challenges we face is that there are not really coordinated data available about those children. There are a lot of institutions, a lot of government levels who have other criteria, who collect a certain amount of data, but there is no big overview about how many children we are actually talking. So I wanted to show you the number of children with special needs that are in special needs education or on the waiting list. But in fact, it is a very, very larger group, because this only is about children, not youngsters, and it's only about children with like an official diagnosis. And there are of course also a lot of children and youngsters with special needs that don't or not yet have an official diagnosis. What I also wanted to share with you is the definition that we use to define those groups. So it's all children who need support or adjustment to participate in childcare or leisure activities. So for example, administration, medication, providing infrastructural facilities, or providing specific guidance during activities. There are actually quite a lot of ways in which we want to make those leisure activities more accessible. I listed a few of them. So the first one is we want to make playgrounds accessible. We work together with institutions, healthcare institutions, and children and parents themselves to make sure they are accessible. The second one, in our visual communication, we try to be as inclusive as possible. The picture you can see here is one of a campaign that we repeat every year about to promote playing outside. So we want to show that playing outside is possible for actually every child. Then we also finance some youth work organizations to organize activities, especially for children with special needs exclusively, and also some to experiment with pilot projects for an inclusive offer. We also try to make sure that our participation tools are accessible. For instance, we work with programs. And last but not least, we provide training and support for a very wide range of organizations. And that last one is the project I really want to present to you. It's a training program for associations. And I would like to start by telling you how we organize the participation projects, because that also tells how we could define the specific needs that were the basis of this program. So we got a lot of questions for accessible leisure time activities. Parents and healthcare organizations strongly indicated that there were too little accessible activities for children aged up to 12 years old, like primary school children, on one hand, and on the other hand, a lot of organizations that organize those activities informed us that they did not know how to properly answer the needs of children who wanted to participate on their activities. So we have a large network as a city department ourselves to gather those needs, to gather those questions, but we also have an advisory council to give us advice on this subject. There is, for instance, an organization included that is called Parents for Inclusion, so that way we also hear the voices of parents and caretakers of children with special care needs. What we also do is survey children and parents during and after activities throughout the year, but also during holidays, of the organizations we subsidize to organize those holiday camps. So we ask parents directly about the care needs of their children and if they are fulfilled in the organization they are coming to. And we also ask questions to children on a more gentle and subtle way about how they feel in the organization and if their needs are met. So for instance, we ask them, do you have a quiet place to go to if you feel like you need one? So all those different signals really gave us, really formed the need to have more accessible leisure time activities. So instead of creating additional offers, we started working to diminish the fragmentation of the already existing activities, and we wanted also to ensure that those existing activities became more inclusive instead of creating additional, perhaps more exclusive activities. There were already some training programs that worked around this theme, so we actually scaled them up and we joined them, we combined them and made them accessible to a wide range of participants. So it is actually organized together with a healthcare institution, with one healthcare institution is the coordinator of the program, and they work together with other institutions to give more specific thematical advice. It is for participants from a broad range of leisure time and after school care organizations, so sport organizations, cultural organizations, but also the after school care in schools itself. Those participants are quite often volunteers or people who don't really have an educational background. So a lot of what they hear in those sessions is quite new to them. So we already have quite a big impact because it's quite new to them. Well, and we actually aim for those participants to pass this knowledge on to their colleagues. So the program consists of required part. Those are the two first sessions. The first one is a basic training, mostly on the social and emotional development of children with and without special care needs and how they may differ. And in the second one, it's a more in-depth session about this theme, so people can dive deeper into all the questions they have and into all those subjects. Then there are several thematical sessions and online interventions. They are organized based on the questions that arose during the basic training. They are based on the themes that participants want to hear more about. So it's also a very participative way to make sure that participants get information they actually need. And there are also interventions. You all know it are mostly online interventions where participants can discuss cases they present themselves. And finally, there is a possibility to ask for on-the-job training. So the healthcare institution that organizes most of the program really comes to the organizations to help with specific issues that were not already solved or mentioned in the training itself. There are, for instance, a lot of questions about how can you design a specific space so it's suitable for a lot of children. It's a program that in this way is not running for already a long time. It's like the second year that we organize it right now, but we do get a lot of positive feedback. So I want to show you two testimonies of participants, because I can tell you a lot about it, but they really can say what it means for their organization and for themselves. So the first one is actually a testimony of a leisure time and holiday organization. The second one is an after-school care organization. So we are really happy to hear that this program has an impact on how they do things. But of course, this is the second project. I'm gonna skip it. There are also some challenges in this program. The first is finding enough funding. I think that is something that we all face, finding enough funding, but also it is quite a challenge to make sure people can find the time to participate, because a lot of them want to participate, but they are overworked. They are always short of staff members. So they often don't come or cancel last minute just because they have way too much to do. And of course, their on-the-job work is priority to this. A second challenge is to translate those what they have learned into a sustainable policy in their organization, and to make sure everyone of their organization is with them on this subject. So one way we already try to meet that need and to face that challenge is to make the on-the-job visit not the last thing that is possible, but to do that as a first thing. So the organization, the healthcare institution visits the participants before they start the training, just to make sure they know each other, to build a bridge and to make the gap between them more narrow and to make it easier to find each other. I will skip this project and then jump to conclusions. The first thing we learned by doing this program is that you don't have to create new initiatives. You can start by seeing what there already is and how you can make that better. We also think it's very important to make sure all staff is involved. You can start with one person, but in the end, to make it work, everyone has to be with you. It's important to collaborate with the right organization to help you. And something we always mention is that you need to listen to what the real needs are, because we often think that we know what people need, but that's not always what they tell you if you listen very carefully. So thank you for listening, and I hope to see you in the breakout room.
Thank you very much, Karen, for that. I'm sure you'll have plenty of follow-up questions in just a moment. But first, I'll hand over to Shantie, please, for the final presentation.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. And so great to be here and be a part of this webinar and tell you more about my city, Rotterdam. I will share my screen now. I think I could fill an hour and a half just talking about Rotterdam, but I only have 50 minutes, so I will highlight a few parts of our approach to gender-based violence with an extra focus on honor-related violence, and I will tell you more about how we work with survivors of domestic violence and key people in our neighborhoods. But first, a little bit about me. While the presentation is loading, my name is Shantie Singh, and I think I've met a lot of you in Bologna, but not everyone. So I work as a senior policy advisor at the Municipality of Rotterdam for the program that tackles domestic violence. I'm also a storyteller, a story listener, and I think that's my most important added value for the public sector. Well, about Rotterdam, I think Rotterdam is truly my city. Many people know Rotterdam, I think, as the second city of the Netherlands with the largest port. But the city is so much more than that. I think we have a very special and daring architecture. I have a beautiful picture of the Erasmus Bridge in my presentation. But we also have the Markthal Central Station. But why I feel so at home in this city is the diversity. Rotterdam is more than 170 nationalities. Myself, through my family history, I'm connected with 3 countries in different parts of the world: India, Suriname, and the Netherlands. And I was born in Almelo, a very small town in the Netherlands. And I remember very well that I felt a bit out of place when I was growing up, until I ended up in Rotterdam for my studies. And in Rotterdam, I could just be, and here everyone was different, and I really felt at home. So I think that says a lot about my city. I think you can see it now, the beautiful Erasmus Bridge, which I was telling about. Thank you, Laura. And we can go to the next slide. So this is what I will tell in my presentation. This is what I just mentioned. So we can go to the next one. Yeah, well, that's me. You can read it later in the presentation. And yeah, well, this is Rotterdam. And just as I mentioned, we have a lot of nationalities, a vibrant culture. So I really hope I will meet you one day in our city. And yeah, so the topic of today is on our next slide, domestic and gender-based violence. And in the next sheets, I have some confronting numbers and figures to start with. In 2020 and 2022, 9% of the population aged 16 and over reported having been a victim of domestic violence. And we're talking about 1.3 million people. Women are more likely to be victims than men, and an estimated 850,000 of these people are victims monthly, weekly, or daily. So I think these are really confronting numbers. The next sheet is about femicide. And then we're talking about deadly gender-based violence against women, which was also a topic in our visit in Bologna. In almost 80% of the cases in which a woman or a girl is killed in the Netherlands, the perpetrator is someone from the domestic circle, so a partner or an ex-partner, a parent, or another family member. And to compare, for men and boys, this is about 15%. So there's a really huge difference. And when we look at the numbers, we see that the province of South Holland, where Rotterdam is located, has the highest percentage of victims of murder and manslaughter nationwide. So it's really important to have that we have a program for this. I have some more numbers on the next slide about Rotterdam. So you can see the numbers are high. And on the next slide about sexual violence in Rotterdam, but I will send you the presentation. So if you're interested, you can have a look at that. But I want to tell you a bit more about our local platform, Stop Violence Against Women. So our local program in Rotterdam has a broad scope, from prevention and care to safety and punishment, to specific attention, for example, honor-related violence. And I will tell you more about it later in my presentation. But I think it's good to know that this platform in Rotterdam has, I think, a very special history. In 2017, you can see it on the next slide, Rotterdam participated for the first time as a municipality in Orange the World, which is an international campaign period from the 25th of November to December 10th to draw attention to stopping violence against women. And the first time we only had an orange Erasmus bridge. You can see it on the next slide. But since then, this has become bigger every year with many actions, programs, campaigns in the city organized by many parties in our city. And I think I want to share with you how this started, because the call and actually the cry, I think, for this came from our city in 2018, which is on the next slide, because in that year, 3 women were murdered in that year's femicide. And of course, these were not the first 3 women to whom something so terrible had happened, but these 3 women seemed to be the last straw in our city at that moment, and it sparked an outrage and engagement, and social organizations started a silent march with a huge turnout. And I remember it very well because it was the dark and cold period between Christmas and New Year's Eve, and there were so many people in the streets. And the mayor made an appeal for an action group that evening. And this is how the platform Stop Violence Against Women was created. And this platform has many different actors, which makes it very interesting. Social organization, but also the police, the public prosecutor's office, help centers, shelters, survivors, and experts by experience. And also local council members were involved. And together with all these parties, we made a manifest, which was a very interesting process. And you can see a part of the group on the next slide. And the goal of this platform is to continue to stimulate the social debates on violence against women, to work on expertise and knowledge together, to collect new ideas, to tackle the problem of violence against women, and to keep each other sharp with the actions formulated in the manifest. And I think because the platform has so many different people working together, we can work on new and innovative ideas. And I really like working in this way. So this year, in 2025, we have a very special Orange the World edition. For the first time, we will organize this in our city hall. And it's also the first time the mayor will open it. We have now a female mayor, Carola Schouten, who is asking for a lot of attention for this problem in the media. And this year we will also unveil a work of art in our city, a monument to stop violence against women. And this will be unveiled in a very prominent place in our city. And I think we are the very first city in the Netherlands to make such a statement. So I'm very proud of that. The next slide has the goals of the platform I just mentioned. And the next one has some images of Orange the World in Rotterdam. And on the next slide, I want to tell you a bit about how we work with survivors. I think it's a very, it's a best practice which I'm proud of. So we've started working structurally with experts by experience. And for this, we have set up a separate organization called Ervaring in Huis, Experience in Our Home. And this consists of a pool of former victims, but also former perpetrators who are all trained and educated. and they are deployed and supporting the care and help to other victims and perpetrators. They provide information, tell their stories to professionals, and they supervise peer support groups. And they also advise policymakers in how we can tackle this problem. And an example of one of these experts by experience is Remy, and he is on the next slide. He's also on our website, and I thought it's a little bit about his story. He was a former victim and a former perpetrator of violence, and he says, "I'm above all just Remy, a boy who dared to ask for help when he could no longer cope himself and dared to take on the battle with himself in the great unknown. And this has ultimately resulted in regaining my own identity, taking back roles, and using social talents." I think it's really inspiring what he does. And myself, I really believe in the power of experts by experience. I think the conversations and meetings I had with them really changed my life. And one of them is the woman on the next slide. Her name is Faiza, and I work with her to set up the approach to honor-related violence in Rotterdam, and I couldn't have done it without her. And I think if you meet Faiza, you see a confident, independent, strong woman, but she comes from very far. She was born and raised in Morocco, and until she was 15, she lived a very normal life. She went to school, wanted to become a journalist, but then she was forced to go to the Netherlands to marry an unknown man, and she became a victim of mental, physical, sexual abuse, intimate terror, and isolation. But she managed to survive all this. And it was a tough fight, but she won in the end. And she wrote a book about her experience, and she wants to be an example for other women who still live in isolation. And I think in one of her talks, she said something to me I will never forget. And I think it's nice to share with all of you. She says, "I may have been a victim at some point in my life, but I refuse to be a victim." And I think that's very inspiring. So the last part of my presentation is about our program to tackle honor-based violence or harmful traditional practices. It's a worldwide phenomenon, also in the Netherlands, also in Rotterdam, but sometimes we think it's not in our country, but it's also part of Rotterdam. And on the next slide, I've included some of the headlines in Dutch newspapers. You cannot read it, but I wanted to emphasize that it's also a big problem in Rotterdam. And in Rotterdam, it's part of our citywide program to tackle domestic violence. And a part of it is the tackling of harmful traditional practices. On the next slide, you can see what we, it's in Dutch, but I can tell you what it says. Harmful traditional practices are forms of domestic violence, mutilation of and oppression, originating from orthodox or conservative traditions and strict beliefs about sexuality and the way men and women should act and be in society. There are different forms of physical and mental violence that occur in close communities, and we see this collective mentality in different groups. So I want to emphasize that there's nothing wrong with traditions in itself. I think, in fact, traditions can be the best and beautiful thing to highlight special things in life, like a wedding. And maybe without traditions, it would be very boring. But they can become harmful when they limit people's rights to self-determination, freedom of choice, and a safe home. And it is in that situation that we talk about harmful traditional practices in Rotterdam. And not only women, but also men and children can be victims of that. And in Rotterdam, harmful traditional practices can be categorized as follows on the next slide. Honor-related violence, I think we all know what that means. but also forced marital captivity. If a woman, usually a woman, cannot leave a marriage, a religious marriage, because her husband does not cooperate or because she has to be in the country of origin to get a divorce, while it's very complicated, often almost impossible to get anything done there. Forced marriages, when a boy or a girl does not want to marry with the person chosen by the parents or the family. Abandonment, if the parents decide that their child or the youngster, against his or her will, is better off in the country of origin or another country. Female genital mutilation, I think we all know what that is, and forced isolated women, like Faisa, who I just mentioned. The next slide, I think, has some numbers and figures for the Netherlands. And on the next one, the next slide, yeah, I think it was a challenge to set this program up in Rotterdam, because the problem of harmful traditional practices is very, very hidden. And it was important to work with key persons, experts by experience, and through them with the communities themselves, where we want to prevent harmful traditional practices. So we invested a lot of time in the partners with whom we're going to collaborate in a formal but also informal way. We developed a policy with informal and formal organizations, and all activities were evaluated by the city, actually. And yeah, it was very interesting, because there were so many interests, so many parties, and this subject is in Rotterdam politically very sensitive. So we really had to get to know the city, and we had to come in places where agencies do not come. So we had to work with key figures in the neighborhoods, and we call them our silent heroes, because they are our eyes and ears for women like Faisa. And on the next slide, or the one after that, you can see a picture of these silent heroes. Oh, sorry, the next one. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful group of people, because they work so hard to reach the women like Faisa. And as you can see, they are both men and women in different professions, and they all are trained, and they are our eyes and ears in the neighborhood. So very valuable. And Laura, if you can go back 2 sheets. Yeah, so one of the most beautiful projects I think we have set up for the harmful traditional practices is called Hecht Verbonden in Nederlands. In this, as a government, we work together with representatives of all kinds of religions, but also with care providers, with lawyers, and experts by experience. And I think this is one of the most special projects I've ever worked on, because I never worked in this kind of collaborations, but it's really amazing what it can do. So I think this was my last sheet. Laura, thank you so much.
So I was with Beatrice from Bologna in the first breakout room, and we discussed the model that they built and how applicable it is to other contexts. So what was definitely key to success was having a very carefully constructed working group, and explaining the expectations in terms of time and engagement right from the beginning, fixing an easy agenda, 1 2-hour meeting per month, and making sure it was super well structured. And they had an amazing retention of the working group, as in everyone attended every single meeting right until the end of the project. And that is really testament to how well planned and how well thought out the process is. And we also had a discussion with our colleagues from Antwerp from Rotterdam, sorry, and getting the two mixed up, talking about the translation and the importance of translation, which I know is a bit of an ongoing discussion in Rotterdam, and was definitely key to the success of the questionnaire, getting the responses and getting the understanding of the information through. So now I would like to ask Adela, please, to summarize the discussion with Karen from Antwerp.
Absolutely. So I was in breakout room 2 with Karen from Antwerp, and we discussed a few things. The challenges, for example, that exist because of the low number of registration of kids and young people with special needs care, as well as, of course, accommodating for all these people, because it's such a massive spectrum, having young people and children with special care needs. It's very difficult to accommodate for all. But I also found it really interesting, our conversation about how you try to develop and improve existing spaces and projects and to make them more inclusive rather than to build on something completely different. And I think that would summarize our conversation.
Thank you very much. And Eleanor was with Shantie from Rotterdam.
Yes, and sorry, Shantie, because we had to leave quickly. We had a very interesting and intense discussion, I would say, especially because we're facing so many different and complex issues those days, and they keep growing over time. And I think that was the point for us. That's why it was so important to talk about it and also to share information as widely and as often as possible. And thank you again. We mostly discussed and follow up to several questions about gender violence, and especially about young women, about the FGMA and how the law is in the Netherlands and how it's even done, and follow up after this. So I think it was very crucial again, and thank you, Shantie, for this amazing work, what you're doing, and thank you for the presentation as well. So thanks.
Yes, I can only reiterate that to all three of our presenters. Thank you so much for the really interesting and informative presentations, which will be shared in the follow-up mailing. I will just go on to give you a quick summary or outlook for the rest of the webinar series. And you can also share your feedback with us at the end. So here we are, diversity and inclusion was today's topic, and we have 2 more webinars coming up. All the computers working slow on a sunny day, obviously. So the next one will be on the interesting topic of data feminism. Is also hosted by the City of Bologna with guest expert Giulia Sudano. And so that's on Tuesday, the 20th of May. And then the final webinar of this series will be on Tuesday, the 10th of June. And we're going to learn about the impact garden methodology, which will be applied to 2 cities from our network. So another interesting one to round up the series with. As many of you know, we're very much looking forward to the ACNAL Mayors Conference, which is happening on Monday and Tuesday of next week. I believe registrations are still open, so if you're in Vienna and you want to join us, please do so. The topic will be Just Transition, Local Action for a Sustainable Future. You can click on the link and have a look at the website, the agenda, and the speakers who will be there. And we'll also be joined by many members of our European City Network who will present their best practices there.